Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring you revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
If any man can hold you, say me you join Amba, refuse, because Amba boys they need to go house to house, ask boys they can't join. My name na Mark Barretta. As we talk so, a repeat of Menka, it go likely happen.
ADF forces outfoxed the colonial forces of La République du Cameroon midweek between Esu and Wum, MENCHUM state. Innocentia.
The boycott of schools is a must. Education is supposed to be a means to an end. With La République, it is neither a means nor an end. This is Jude Agua Osugen.
Another week, another massacre, another series of atrocity crimes, war crimes and extrajudicial executions by the colonial forces of La République du Cameroon in Ambazonia. The most gruesome of those crimes this week was the massacre, in a manner similar to the massacre in Penin earlier this year, of about 30 young men who reportedly turned up to enroll as Ambazonian self-defense fighters only to walk into a trap set by colonial forces who proceeded to execute every one of them in cold blood, as only monsters can do. It was indeed a bloody week, which also happened to be the anniversary of the Lake Nyos gas and man-made disaster. The same week of the passing into glory of former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, of the passing into glory of former Prime Minister of neighboring colonial Cameroon, Sadou Ayatou, of the return to the heavens for Pa Kadji de Fosso of Union Camerounaise de Brasserie in next-door La République du Cameroon, who played a remarkable role in advancing multi-party politics and democracy through his well-documented support to the SDF in those early days. It was also a week that ended Saturday with the death of the Bishop of Ezeka, Monseigneur Dieudonné Mbokmise. It was equally a bloody week for the colonial forces of La République du Cameroon, who were left with a black eye after they were ambushed and apparently taken to war school and beaten by ADF restoration forces in what some have called the killing fields of Subum, Esu, Wei, Nyos, and Wum. It is in that direction that 7 trucks full of La République terrorist forces were headed after departing Saturday night from Fundong, capital of BOYO state in the northern zone. They were headed for MENCHUM state. Here is Innocentia with the first part of our roundup of the week's news, beginning with the black eye that the terrorist forces of La République du Cameroun suffered at the hands of ADF forces in MENCHUM state.
Morale is high within ADF circles and Ambazonia restoration forces as a whole after ADF forces outfoxed the colonial forces of La République du Cameroun midweek between Esu and Wum, MENCHUM state. Several media outlets, including the BBC, confirmed that La République du Cameroun lost several men, as well as a sizable cache of ammunition and heavy-duty weapons to ADF forces. Still in MENCHUM state, the colonial divisional officer for Wum has lost both his home and official vehicle to arson. Ambazonia Defense Forces in the area have also claimed responsibility for the burning down of the Wum and Zwa Gendarmerie buildings, as well as the killing of 3 paramilitary officers in the campaign. Unconfirmed sources are also reporting the burning down of the Colonial Office of Elections Cameroon, ELECAM, the Cameroon organization that is responsible for the rigging and re-election of President Biya. With unanimity, pro-restoration movements have called on Ambazonians from across the land to actively abstain from participating in any elections organized by La République du Cameroun. Facebook, the social media Goliath, has been hired by La République du Cameroon to do some of its dirty censorship work. Several Biya critics who are campaigning for an end to the 50 years reign of the octogenarian have seen their accounts shut down. It comes on the heels of a 10-day working visit to Cameroon, August 6th to the 15th, by Facebook representatives led by Senegalese-born Madame Ndiaye. The entire visit, including flight, hotel accommodation, and food and drinks, was reportedly sponsored by the government of La République du Cameroon. Cameroonese Prime Minister Philemon Yang has thrown in the towel insofar as campaigning in Ambazonia is concerned. "I am not going to be paying for any ransoms," said the PM, according to The Post, a local paper reporting midweek that the Biya campaigner-in-chief warned CPM zealots against overzealousness. Stay tuned for part 2 of our week's roundup of what made news in our world. Ntumfoyn.
This is Ambazonia Calling. Stay tuned, more to come.
Crowds cheering Amber Boys in Batabo on Saturday as they held an impromptu rally in the heart of the city. The commander of the self-defense unit is seen in the video carrying what appears to be a Zastaya M21, one of those fire-spitting machine guns that shoots about 680 rounds per minute, manufactured in Serbia and principally supplied in Cameroon to the terrorist B forces of colonial Cameroon. They closed the rally by singing the Ambazonian anthem. In another scene, they are seen walking through Guzang Market to the enthusiastic welcome of traders and buyers.
Yes, Guzang Market is. Guzang so the cow after we glad the salon a bit better. Yes, and then so I say all man be very happy. As we look there, so you see, I say all man be very happy. No man no dey retreat face. Yes, all man only gain a power, no go front. So the work. Yes.
In additional news, colonial officers in Bafut have relocated to Bamenda town, ceding the territory to Bafut's 7 Qatar Ambazonian self-defense forces, which had issued an ultimatum for immediate evacuation by all colonial officers and their collaborators. Serious gunshots were reported in Balangi beginning very early Saturday morning and lasting into the day, according to residents who fled into the bushes and cocoa plantations for safety. One resident said the soldiers responsible for the gunshots were moving from door to door, arresting people, torturing some, and summarily executing others. Heavy gun battles were also ongoing into the night Saturday in the neighborhoods of Mile 16 outside of BOYO in the southern zone, and on Sabga Hill in the northern zone. Around Sabga, the rumble of the gunshots could be heard echoing through the hillside neighborhoods of Babankitungo, and they could also be heard across communities at the foot of the hill, stretching across Ndop Plain and the plains of Bambui, Bambili, and Kejemkuku. Here's Ntumfoyn with the second part of our news roundup, beginning with an open letter by former American Peace Corps volunteers to Cameroon.
Former American Peace Corps volunteers to Cameroon have written an open letter to President Biya. Observing the ongoing war in Cameroon, the former volunteers are calling for the earliest cessation of all violence, killings, destruction, and suffering affecting the Cameroonian people. Penned on August 22nd, the letter recommends that Mandela's legacy serve as a model for national dialogue and forgiveness through mediation by a third party. Over 3,600 American Peace Corps volunteers have served in Cameroon since opening shop in 1962. The Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa has published an exhaustive list confirming 106 villages burned down and or deserted so far in Ambazonia. While laying the blame for the crimes against humanity on the doorsteps of the Cameroon army, Abonkong of the Senate signals the existence of documented evidence. Ramped-up logging activity has been reported on the corridors of Muyuka Kumba in the southern zone. A video gone viral midweek confirms military convoys escorting truckloads with some of the best from the rainforests of Ambazonia. ADF forces confirmed on Monday that La République du Cameroon retreated in the face of overwhelming force and tactical prowess of ADF brigade along Badipo-Manfé Highway. La République du Cameroon reportedly lost 2 soldiers in the fight. Security workers at Santum Road Construction are confirming that La République du Cameroon soldiers in uniform set company trucks on fire, not Amber Boys, as earlier claimed by La République du Cameroon. The prolific poet, actress, creative writer and associate professor of English at the University of Hartford, Dr. Joyce Ashun Tantang, has added another work to her publications. Beautiful Fire surmises that independence for Ambazonia is the only solution. Finally, there is a red alert for Ambazonians living in and around Mile 90, Mbatu, Senajes, and the Chomba area. They are to be on the watch against intruders on the payroll of renegade Cameroonese Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, who is reportedly planning another Pinyin-type massacre in the area and to blame on Amber Boys. Innocentia for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling has seen and is horrified by video showing a man alleged to be a burglar who is being tortured by unidentified gunmen, who at one point during the short video fire a bullet into one of the feet of the victims. We like to recall to our people that torture is a crime. Please refrain from torture. This is a public service announcement. To finish the roundup of the news of the week, let us go back to last Sunday when thousands of Ambazonians demonstrated outside the White House. Here is the audio file from a report filed Sunday by Roda Television.
A day of celebration. 5 days after Kurdistan region's independence referendum, southern Cameroon's Anglophone region declared its own independence. Streets of the newly born Federal Republic of Ambazonia were swept clean, with the names of the Republic written on road signs.
Right here, they have placed their flag. Welcome to Amba's land.
Within days, Cameroon troops altered the celebratory mood to one of crime and despair. Hundreds killed and maimed, thousands more fled to the nearby jungles. Ambazonia's then president, Sissoko Ayuk Tabe, was arrested in Nigeria, then deported to Cameroon.
My name is Chris.
Although it lacks recognition, Ambazonians and their new leadership are not giving up. Their interim president has concentrated efforts in Washington, D.C. to gain the international recognition his republic and people direly need.
The question is to Your Excellency, Mr. President, but what other countries you are hoping that they would be sympathetic towards your cause?
We have had talks with our neighbors, and in sub-Saharan Africa, we've made some inroads. And then the rest, we have some other inroads beyond Africa, but it is not convenient for us to talk about them.
Meanwhile, hundreds of Ambazonians gather within earshot of the resident of the world's most powerful leader, demanding recognition and intervention by the United States. On October 1st, 2017, Ambazonia declared independence. Since they have been trying to gain recognition from the regional countries and international community. Here, Ambazonians have gathered in front of the White House to tell the Americans and President Donald Trump that they, like any other sovereign nation, have the right to independence. They want the White House to pressure Yaoundé to stop the bloodshed.
Most people here cannot go back to Ambazonia, but we are people totally free. We have won our case before international courts, including the International Court of the African Union and before the United Nations, and that's why we won the world to welcome us as the newest country in Africa.
This protester, angry at the United Nations system, insisted on delivering a particular message.
Antonio Guterres, that the gold statue that he took from Mr. Paul Biya, he will never sleep in peace. We are going to chase him to the gate of the hell, we the Ambazonians, until he will bring back that statue because it's our property.
Cameroon's southern Anglophone region claims it has been oppressed for more than half a century by the federal government because of linguistic differences. Rosh Arizala, Rudau, Washington.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Of the hundreds of Ambazonian American children who attended last Sunday's rally outside the White House, Ambazonia Calling caught up with 3 of them.
Hello, my name is Ali and I'm 9.
Hello, my name is Trayvon, I'm 11.
Hello, my name is Shala and I'm 12.
All 3 of you were at the Ambazonia rally outside the White House. What happened at the rally? What happened to you? You had an incident?
Yes, I got dehydrated and I started feeling weak and I started like falling and stuff. I asked them if I could take a break and luckily they got me all fixed up, so nothing bad happened there.
And I saw a lot of you were carrying flags.
I was carrying the flags in the front.
I was also carrying a flag in the front.
I carried my flag in the back.
Was this your first rally?
No.
You've already done some stuff for Ambazonia?
Yes.
So you are militant?
Yes.
Let's talk about just the feeling. The people that were there. Did you think enough people showed up?
No.
Yes. I think there was a lot of people. I mean, there could have been more, but there was still a lot of people that were there supporting.
Exactly.
So if there were not enough, you were telling people they should show up at the next one?
Yes.
They will be missing something if they don't come?
Yes.
But tell me, there was also all of that singing and dancing up in front of the White House. What part of it did you enjoy the most?
I liked when we were actually marching, not when we were just standing.
The marching was great.
Yeah.
And the singing. Anybody remembers the song?
No.
Ambazonia's rising. Rising. Ambazonia's rising to fall no more.
Any other song?
No, I don't. That's the one I remember.
Yeah.
The leaders came together. They were holding hands together. Some of them said the moment was electric. What do you guys say it was?
I think it was exciting for me to do stuff that I would never really do if I had someone push me to.
What about all the pictures that you saw there that were coming from Ambazonia of all these people who had been wounded or killed? What about those pictures?
They were horrible.
What have you got to say to the president of La République du Cameroon who is doing all this thing to people? What have you got to say to him?
That he should stop and you're just taking down the population of how many people are in Africa and how many people you can do all this horrible stuff to.
What would you say to him?
I'd say he should stop also because if he kills everyone, then it's like, because if he kills everyone, then, he has no one to do that to, so I think he should just stop.
And over here?
I think he should stop because those are his own people and there's no reason to do that because they never did anything. So I think that should stop too.
What would you say to other kids your age, younger, older, who were not at this demonstration, when you hear that there's going to be another demonstration on the 30th of September? First, are you going?
Yes.
Yes.
Definite yes for all three of you?
Yes.
Then, what are you going to say to other kids who were not there?
You should come protest with us so that Donald Trump can stop all the genocide in Africa or Ambazonia.
I think that you should come because you can't just do change with one person. You need to have a big group of people to do something and stop all the genocide.
And I think that you should come to help because the more people makes it like bigger and makes like someone want to do something more because they know how many people are actually fighting for it to happen.
Then we had all these slogans there. There was all this stuff like Ambazonia, oh yeah. You heard the thing, wata na wata.
Mm-hmm.
But let me hear you guys say it.
Water na water na water.
Water na water.
Let me hear you say
Water
it.
na water.
Okay. You know, that's the difference between the Ambazonian young American Ambazonians and the Ambazonians. We are doing wata na wata, and they're doing water na water. That's good. Thank you very much. It was great talking to you guys. We'll see you at the demonstration on the 30th of September.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. So welcome, Professor Tatamenta, to our segment. Can we just start by just taking the temperature? One of the most gruesome things that happened was definitely what happened in Jikwa, the massacres in Jikwa.
According to the BLA-REACTs, the claim is that they are fighting to maintain the one and indivisible country, which in reality has never been one, let alone indivisible. Because you remember that Article 102 of the Charter of the United Nations was intended to avoid the root cause of what triggered the Second World War. The article states that a member state of the United Nations that wishes to join another territory is free to do so, provided the parties present the terms of their association in a written agreement and file a copy of the said agreement at the United Nations Secretariat in evidence of their consensus ad idem. But that failure to comply renders the association of the parties invalid as being in violation of the statutory provisions of the UN Constitution. There is nothing at the United Nations Secretariat filed about the union between Cameroon and Ambazonia. So that is a fallacious argument. Lucifer Bia has to pay very expensively for it.
I mean, and the clear thing is that no resolution mentions unification or reunification of any kind. As a matter of fact, in 1972, during the referendum, that's why they were calling it reunification, because they were trying to fix it.
Well, they are always playing around with words. Their verbal gymnastics are very vacuous, as we definitely understand. The evidence is that Trustee Britain failed to hand the instruments of power over the UN Trust Territory of Southern Cameroon to the indigenous government of Southern Cameroon, then led by Poncha. And power instead to Amadou Ahidjo, president of the colonizing or expansionist Republic of Cameroon. So that is an illegality in itself. So it's a criminal act which the United Nations has to go back on it. The United Nations cannot run away from it by playing pranks.
Which explains why neither the United Nations nor the colonial regime can pretend that this is an internal matter.
And that is why the Satanic Republic of Cameroon cannot take it to any international court. We've already won our thing in the African court in Banjul, and then the African Union or African Uselessness has said we should organize this thing peacefully and separate. But all the same, the Biafra South State insists that we must stay together or live together. And that is unacceptable. We will never buy that even in the auctions.
The Security Council, for instance, would be the equivalent of a kangaroo court, knowing that France will rule against any particular issue. There may be other powers that are willing to do that by way of veto power. If we take that away, if we take away the Security Council as a kangaroo court, where would this matter be best settled?
Well, the basic problem is that if we are looking at Article 6 of the United Nations Charter, we see a member of the United Nations which has persistently violated the principles contained in the present charter may be expelled from the organization. So we need to push now to make sure that La République, a vassal state, is expelled from the United Nations because it has violated by every principle of the United Nations, with the crimes against humanity legion. Nobody needs to go very far to get all those crimes. So another article, Article 33 of the Charter state, the parties to any dispute, the continuance of which is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security, shall, first of all, seek a solution by negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, resort to regional agencies or arrangements or other peaceful means. La République du Cameroon terrorist state is supposed now to join Ambazonia so that the United Nations will mediate such a situation. It is there in the charter. It is not something which anybody is inventing.
Could you tell us what would be the way forward? We have heard over the weekend leaders gather say, first, no school, continuous boycott of schools because we don't want violence done to our children in the schools, but also we don't want colonial education handed down to our children, which makes them second-class citizens. We have called for massive demonstrations coming up and the barricading of our country, and for the 8 million Ambazonians to turn themselves in for garrison duty as an army of one man that will absolutely take control of our territory.
When they talk of school resumption, it is very palatable, it's tasty and all the like. But to which schools are they going to? Does going to school mean being educated? These fellows are being destroyed on a daily basis. Listen to the kind of English which they speak and read what they write. You understand? If they teach the children, I'm go there, I'm come here. That is not English we know conventionally, so they are not being educated. We already have a whole program based on 21st century principles of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is what we want our children to come up with. Today is no longer a matter of pen being martyred and it's the keyboard. These animals do not understand exactly where we are in the 21st century. So we have not to allow our children to continue under this intellectual menticide or total destruction of the ideas of our children in the name of going to school. Because those who are clamoring for going to school only want either children and parents to pay school fees so that we're feasting on it or something else. They are not considering the future of the children. We have to give our children the best education, but not the kind of training for one evil public service as we have now in the Republic. And they would never even go into that so-called public service anyway, because Biya and his butchers, cold stone murderers, will not even allow the children to get into the public service.
I thank you very much, Professor Tatamenta. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful week.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Frontline Ambazonia leaders this week reiterated their support for the continuation of the school boycott all across Ambazonia until the environment across the annexed territory becomes conducive for learning. Jude Ozugen has this editorial on why the boycott should be reinforced.
Educational institutions have essentially been grounded in Ambazonia for 2 years, and the colonial government in Yaoundé is desperate to assume zero responsibility for the mess. They are pointing accusing fingers at everyone else for the callous indifference and reckless insensitivity it has shown in addressing the wave of protests which began with demands for better schools and court conditions. Now, as on every occasion since the start, the colonialists seek a return to normalcy, over and above seeking any solution to the education and legal problems that triggered the strike in the first place. The regime has not addressed a single demand by the teachers, parents, and students. Even worse than that, the regime has shown a high propensity to harming any Ambazonians, including students. It is important not to forget who closed down or created the insecurity that has forced schools to shut down. Students were going about their education at the University of BOYO when troops of colonial Cameroon dragged them out, humiliated them, abducted, raped, maimed, and killed and disappeared some. The Yaoundé regime is yet to rebuild the over 100 schools which Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch reported razed, to say nothing of the close to 100 villages burnt to the ground where students will stay in order to attend school. Tens of thousands of kids are in refugee camps in neighboring Nigeria. Millions are internally displaced, many of them living in bushes and in the forests, wallowing in abject poverty and squalor. And a government which will not even allow international humanitarian assistance to reach them wants to pretend that they care enough to allow them to die from starvation, if only they could go to school. It is not in doubt that the colonial forces are forces of insecurity. They guarded Sacred Heart College in order to do the insider job of burning down that school. These are the troops which only a few weeks ago dragged out 5 students from their hostels in the University of Bamenda, Bambilu campus, then extrajudicially executed them. They ordered the evacuation of no fewer than 16 villages in MANYU state alone, yet want schools to resume. Did they not force young girls from PSS Bali to swim in the mud outside their campus and then gang rape them? The boycott of schools is a must. Education is supposed to be a means to an end. With La République, it is neither a means nor an end. The more education you get, the more they pass you off for school dropout and fraudsters like Atanga Ponji and Patrick Ekema. If La République can show us 10 students who were employed last year, we at Ambazonia Calling can produce 10,000 other students who did not get a job of any kind except to ride motorbikes as taxi. Once our independence is restored, we will begin to yield the basic fabric of our society and start raising our children in an educational system that enables us to create an ethical and sustainable society, and put in place a system that empowers the lives of young people educationally, economically, and politically. In a free Ambazonia, we will be able to steer our children towards STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, careers which created sunrise industry that are the origin of the technological revolution that has created a more wholesome life for Western society. This is Jude Agua Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
If you sing the Hail, Hail this land of glory as your anthem, you cannot possibly be anything other than an Ambazonian. Willie brought a day.
If there's such a thing as political orgasm, Ambazonia had one last Sunday. Manjong Jude Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
For reasons best known to the international community, they have intentionally ill-defined the Ambazonian problem. Pa Luma Matthew.
There is great joy and relief in the hearts and minds of Ambazonians who saw several frontline leaders of the pro-independence movement walk in each other's arms last week in Washington, D.C. It is a feel-good moment for the entire movement. Yet it is at such moments that pundits must question why it took so long, and if indeed the proclaimed collaboration is a reality, a farce, or was last Sunday just a photo op. Barrister Manjong Jutambe reports.
Last Sunday's march by Ambazonians on the White House was a fulfilling moment. If there is such a thing as political orgasm, Ambazonia had one last Sunday. While few welcome pundits rain praises on that parade, some pertinent questions are worth asking. Why did it take so long to happen? What was the holdout about? Calls for such a collaborative unity moment went out as soon as the last conclave was held in Zaria, excluding certain organizations. The first concrete effort to bring about last weekend's communion was announced in the form of a reboot workshop. Ambazonian surrogates, the very ones who applaud last weekend's amazing come-together, fought the reboot workshop, even when organizers twice postponed it in an effort to ensure participation by all. Even when it held leading to the creation of ARC in February 2018, it faced stiff opposition from pro-interim government surrogates and leaders. On the day it convened at the Catholic University of America, a protest, meant to sabotage it, was organized outside an abandoned embassy of La République in Washington, D.C. 9 precious months were wasted between the first calls for such a reunion and last weekend's photo op outside the White House. Looking back, the simple truth is that some Ambazonian leaders clearly held out on promoting self instead of focusing on collaboration. Old habits die hard, they say, and Ambazonians must understand and accept that bad habits also tend to live forever unless amputated. It must provide a huge relief to Ambazonians to learn that frontline leaders insisted on surrogates not spreading falsehoods, spewing hate, or promoting division in their name. Yet, last weekend's get-together showed other dangers that need to be tackled immediately. It was an old boys thing, with a few girls made to play figurehead. Collaboration must be built across the gender divide. It must be more inclusive of women, youth, and professional groups, many of which may not have the same experience or reputation of the more advertised frontline movements. Ambazonia needs all on board as we march to BOYO, and Ambazonians should demand no less from the leaders. The devil in collaboration will be in the detail. The photo op came before the hard work of building the institution of collaboration. Gladly, the first week suggests that leaders will build on progress, harvesting any low-hanging fruit as they do so. This week, we witnessed them collaborate during their appearance at the National Press Club, but also on SCBC and SCTV. The movements will be best served by ensuring that they agree on a memorandum of understanding that details division of labor. They must set up that long-delayed joint treasury and manage any and all resources with absolute transparency and accountability. Hopefully, last weekend was the first step in a long but crucial journey. Regardless of how tedious the road ahead may be, the fate and suffering of our people, the genocide raging in Ambazonia, and our common desire to free Ambazonia must remain a constant reminder of the need for a true and honest collaborative unity. Manjong Jutambe for Ambazonia Calling.
The colonizers are begging Ambazonians to be known as Cameroonians. Part of the endless renaming of our people has been intentional, the goal being to deny our people a nationality. As Willie Brotherday reports, we have an identity crisis that needs a resolution.
We have an identity crisis that we must address. Some of our people refer to themselves as Southern Cameroonians, others as Ambazonians, while another group compounds the confusion by combining the two. From the foregoing, it is clear that we need to figure out who we are. In order to fix this anomaly, let's do a quick recap of our evolution as a people so that we can clear any confusion, especially as the first anniversary of the restoration of our independence is around the corner. Before we joined Cameroon, our country was known as Southern Cameroons. On October 1st, 1961, it was renamed West Cameroon under Article 1-1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, and we became Cameroonians under Article 1-9 of that same document. 11 years later, the colonizer killed the Federation and proceeded to erase our identity by absorbing our country and breaking it up into the northwest and southwest provinces. They also did something even more sinister. They gave us a new name, Anglophones. Our people challenged and resisted that moniker in much the same way that Kunta Kinte in Alex Haley's Roots rejected and resisted the name Toby that his slave master gave him. So, when Paul Biya signed the Restoration Law of February 1984, renaming the country Republic of Cameroon, and by that token exhuming their name that had been discarded at the creation of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, one of our earliest freedom fighters, Fongum Gojidinka, declared Biya's act a de facto secession from the Union and went on to rename our country Ambazonia, instead of resuscitating the name Southern Cameroons that we also relinquished in order to form the ill-fated union with them. With the emergence of the SCNC in 1993, our old name resurfaced and its use and popularity increased as our independence quest gathered steam in the ensuing years. However, when Siseko Ayuk Tabe declared the restoration of our independence, this time as Ambazonia on October 1st, 2017, we assumed a new identity, Ambazonian. Therefore, bear in mind that if you are against any form of association with Cameroon, you are an Ambazonian. If you agree that our independence was restored on October 1st, 2017, you are an Ambazonian. If you are in favor of actions on ground zero, such as Country Sunday, and support self-defense activities, you are an Ambazonian. If you recognize as your flag the blue and white stripes with 13 stars and a dove, you are an Ambazonian. And finally, if you sing the Hail, Hail this land of glory as your anthem, you cannot possibly be anything other than an Ambazonian. So, Ambazonian, know thyself. Willie brought Ade for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials. Ambazonian heroes are not only willing to fight for the self-defense of our people, they are willing to give their flesh, blood, and life. A video went viral this week of the funeral of one of our fallen heroes. Barrister C. Ajimvuambe says we need a reminder that our people are at war, that lives are being lost, and that we must hasten the day of our triumphant entry into BOYO.
This is audio from a very, very moving video of our brave self-defense fighters. Some of you have probably already seen the video. It shows young volunteers and heroes, armed mostly with den guns, singing solemnly at the funeral of one of our fallen heroes, dancing around the hero's grave, surrounded from a little distance by the grieving family and community. I don't know about other Ambazonians, but when I watched this video, boy, was I bawling like a baby. Young men in the prime of their lives, reaffirming their decision to give blood, limb, and even life for the defense of motherland Ambazonia. After watching the video, I asked myself, what else could really motivate those among us who still do not realize that this is a life and death struggle? As for me, it is heart-wrenching scenes like this that have me inextricably tied and committed to this struggle. If we are not doing and saying everything that needs to be done and said to stop these young men, in fact, these children, from burying their peers and singing songs like this, songs that just shatter one's heart, then I ask, What are we doing to hasten the day of triumphant entry into BOYO? What are we really doing to ensure that the world cannot ignore the aspirations and cries of brave young fighters like this? I'm sorry, fellow Ambazonians. Some days are just worse than others. The reality of the unjust war waged against our people doesn't have to be pictures of a massacre like the one in Pinyin. It could be just a video, a simple video like this one, that reminds us that our people are at war. It is video like this that wrecks one's day and causes one to go through the rest of the day, the week, or even a lifetime like a zombie. That's how I feel right now. And that is why we must continue to battle in every way possible to ensure that we get to BOYO sooner rather than later. This is C. Ajimbo Ambe.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week. This week again, we had a crowd of contenders vying for the one crown of shame. Our editorial team sorted through who is who in that world of shame, and here now is Ambazonia Calling's Veronique Ntumfoyn with this week's rundown of the queens and kings of foolish.
Finishing in third place this week are presidential wannabes, Akeremona and Joshua Osi. The two join a long list of power-hungry attention seekers who continue to pretend that the tyrant in Yaoundé can be ousted in a ballot. In videos shared widely on social media this week, the SDF flag bearer joins Akeremona in suggesting that the issues of marginalization can be fixed without addressing the root cause, which is self-determination, self-government, and sovereignty for the people of Ambazonia. In dire need of fitting in, both Akeremona and Joshua Osi resort to French. On one occasion this week, Joshua Osi is seen on video wrestling with English. History shall no doubt retain that they preferred chopping soya. Akeremona and Joshua Osi are this week's third place finishers for the crown of Nyamfuka of the Week. In the position of runner-up is the convener of the so-called Southwest Forum, house slave Peter Mafani Mosonge. It is widely rumored in BOYO that many of those listed as attendees only found out from social media they had been recruited into this evil enterprise. Payment of a sitting allowance, transport, lodging, expenses, a per diem, and some additional bribe money have apparently enticed enough people to sell out. As in the old days, when chiefs sold their people into slavery for bottles of whiskey, gunpowder, and Dane guns, the so-called elite, led by Peter Mafani Mosonge, hope they can sell Ambazonians into colonial domination. The house slaves to the so-called Southwest Forum and their lead convener, Peter Mafani Mosonge and co., are this week's runners-up for the crown of Nyamfuka of the Week. Finishing top of the charts this week is CRTV's George Ewane. This is the fellow who believes Paul Biya is a little better than Jesus Christ. In a recent broadcast, the low-energy George Ewane compared Paul Biya to Jesus Christ and concluded that his Paul Biya ranks first amongst the gods, including God the Son, Jesus Christ himself. This week, George Ewane is back with a hefty dose of the same stupidity. This was George Ewane in Wonderland, seeing with cobwebs in his eyes. Some say it is George Ewane's desperate attempt to get his job back as correspondent at the palace of the dictator. He is probably hoping that his call for schools to resume will endear him back in the heart of Etudi. After he was fired over that interview with the American ambassador to Cameroon, in which the diplomat slammed the colonizer for targeted killing, looting, and burning of entire villages. George Ewane this week took his job as a propagandist of the colonial regime to a new low, evoking one human right, education, to try to suppress another human right, the right to nationality. The emotional blackmail fell flat on its face, but for trying so hard at being an idiot, George Ewane is this week's winner of the Trophy of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Veronique Vertimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Has the Ambazonian quest for restoration of international sovereignty been accurately identified and explained first to our people and then to the world in ways that make sense and leave them with no other choice than to be searching for ways of granting Africa's newest state recognition? Here to answer that question is Pa Luma Matthew, whose paper is delivered in studio by Prince Alem of Ajam Inc., USA.
One of the strategies for victory in a quest like ours is the element of a common and powerful narrative known to all and shared with all, plus, given the ongoing war waged on our people, the element of surprise. It is a welcome relief that part of the effort launched last weekend in Washington, D.C. consists of rebranding our revolution and taking swift action to ensure that the colonizer does not complete the transformation of the territory into concentration camps. For reasons best known to the international community, they have intentionally ill-defined the Ambazonian problem in order to obscure the search for a solution. Our people have been part of the problem by accepting names they have called us, including Northwest, Southwest, West Cameroon. In 1993, we swallowed the bait by naming the Constitutional Crisis Conference we held in Boya and Bamenda, respectively in 1993 and 1994, as the All-Anglophone Conference. Whereas we are not Anglophones, we are Ambazonians. It is only today that our people have risen to fight the recolonization in the best way possible, through active resistance, including with arms if left with no other choice. The annexation began on the eve of our independence from Britain, when President Amadou Ahidjo of La République illegally moved his military forces and occupied our territory. The colonial government of Yaoundé imposed itself over the erstwhile functional government in Boya, the parliament, the House of Funds and Chiefs, effectively overthrowing a government that had enjoyed the first ever democratic transfer of power. The peoples of southern Cameroon are, therefore, the pathfinders of representative democracy in Africa. That is why they want to restore their golden past by ending an illegal and colonial occupation by their neighboring state. The United Nations, acting on behalf of the sovereign people of Ambazonia, who had clearly expressed their desire for independence in a referendum, voted on the 21st of April 1961 to pass UNGA Resolution 1608, granting full independence to Ambazonia. That independence was compromised by Ahidjo and by his successor, Biya. Last September 22nd, and especially on October 1st, 2017, the sovereign people of Ambazonia declared that independence restored. There is no authority above the sovereign people of Ambazonia, and it is about time, for the sake of peace, and in order to spare further bloodshed, that the international community led by African Union and the United Nations put an end to the annexation by Yaoundé and reaffirm the inalienable right of the people of Ambazonia to self-government and international sovereignty. Reading in the studio by Prince Alem on behalf of author Pa Luma Matthew for Ambazonia Calling.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, after last Sunday when those Ambazonian terrorists took over the street outside the White House, polluting the air with their chants, proclaiming that their journey will not end until they reach Boya, I'm just touching base to find out if you have recovered from the shock. I was told you collapsed when you saw the crowd that turned out there. Last Sunday was just the entree, Joshua. The main course will be served on September 30th all around the globe. Ambazonians will rally in what our people are calling the Remembrance of Restoration Day. We are not celebrating yet. We will not celebrate until we get to Boya. I am writing to bring you some really bad news on the war front. You wonder why I care? What are neighbors for, Joshua? Look, someone has got to bring you up to speed with the progress or lack thereof of that unjust and losing war that you declared against Ambazonia last November 30th. This is a favor I know you need, although you are too proud to ask. You have not heard the real news from the war front. I know, because none of those boy ministers that are at the service of your royal nothingness would dare to tell their naked emperor that he is not in his Sunday best. Coup plotters like Issa Chiruma are banned from mentioning words like war, weapons, or blood, or killing anywhere within earshot of the big man, lest they bring back memories of him hiding in the basement bunker of the presidential palace, peeing on his diapers as coup plotters pelted Etudi with grenades and bombs. It is not school dropouts like Paul Atanganji who will volunteer bad news. It wouldn't be bootlickers like Jacques Famundongo who would dare be the bearers of bad news to the altar of their god at Etudi. Before I give you the bad news, tell me what exactly happened to the Odeshi you were anointed with when you were made fun of funds. Don't tell me you are no longer consulting that oracle. If you had been checking with the wooden gods of Amok, the ones you worship, you would have been told that the souls of the over 3,000 victims of the Lignos man-made disaster are still roaming the purgatory section situated in the valleys of Isu, Wei, Wum, Subum, Benankuma, and Fonfuka. The blood of those victims is still crying out for vengeance. This week, those poor souls possessed some Ambazonian self-defense forces, and they pounced on and killed several units of your highly trained and professional army. The story is that the professional army was beaten aller-retour on this round. If I were you, I would have some serious questions for the trainers and the commanders. How can highly professional forces, how can soldiers who are ranked first worldwide in the massacre of babies and unarmed mothers, in the abduction of pro-independence leaders, in the killing and disappearance of peaceful demonstrators, allow themselves to be given a black eye by the Ambazonian ragtag, ill-equipped, never trained, and shall I add, highly unprofessional forces? Tell your colonial forces that it is not as easy to kill members of the ragtag army as it is for the bloodthirsty monsters to trap and cowardly slaughter 30 youngsters in cold blood in Jikwa. That massacre so angered General Biabia and his boys that they deployed in broad daylight in Guzang Market, crying out for your terrorist forces to show themselves where them they. Before I blame only those soldiers for the easy victory of Ambazonian self-defense forces, can any of your generals tell you where they kept backup, Joshua? Your highly professional soldiers were getting their throats slit by a ragtag army without backup, even before the garrison call to all 8 million Ambazonians has been heeded. What will happen when sometime after next September 30th, I will not tell you the date, when Ambazonians will be completely out there, occupying every inch of our territory, all 8 million of us, sealing off roads with thousands of barricades. What will happen, Joshua? How will your army move? How will the backup come? This is not a war that La République du Cameroon and France combined can win. Before you persist, please ask your masters France for advice. Paris will tell you a thing or two from their Waterloo in Haiti, in Vietnam and in Algeria. Ask Russia and America how even their forces as superpowers tried but lost their ill-fated military adventures in Afghanistan. Ask nuclear apartheid South Africa why it lost its war to maintain blacks in subjugation. It is simple, Joshua. The number of Ambazonians willing and ready to die. Even better, the number of Ambazonians offering their lives so that our homeland be freed of the yoke of recolonization will always outnumber any soldiers you will be compelled to deploy to Ambazonia, and that will be by a number of at least 100,000 to 1. It is only a matter of time when we will oblige all of them to surrender to our people peacefully or be treated as potential genocidaires of our people. Your army has been very successful at breaking into and looting homes and razing entire villages. It has been good at abducting and executing unarmed civilians, at raping girls, young women, and even Takamban grandmothers. Your army has managed to lure young men into compounds, as in Penin last month and in Jikwa this week, to slaughter in crimes against humanity that your army unfortunately celebrates as military victories. By the way, and just before I go, did you read the letter from the National Episcopal Conference of Ambazonia? You have not heard of them? Well, for the time being, they still call themselves BAPEC. Have you perused or are you still waiting for the translation in French? The bishops of Ambazonia, who advise you on what to do from the onset of what they still call a sociopolitical crisis long after it became a war, they advise you to do the right thing by recognizing that we are two people, two nations, two republics, which could by accident have become one. In this last letter, the bishops have some great advice for you. I prefer that you read and heed that advice. They call on you to lay down your arms. They could not be talking to Ambazonian self-defense forces because you never lay down self-defense. It is sound advice, Joshua. The only thing I would have loved to see them add to that would have been for them to tell you to your face that you started the Wahala, that you owe it to yourself to stop this stupid war until you withdraw your colonial forces back to your borders inherited from colonization. One last thing before I go. I've heard of the sudden death of Bishop Bogmis of Ezeka, and on behalf of the sovereign people of Ambazonia, who helped train him as a priest of the Catholic Church, it better not be revealed that you and your Amok Famla group had anything to do with his passing into glory.